Assalamu alaikum. In today's lecture, we will study about the assessment of the cardiovascular system. First of all, we will review the anatomy of the heart. Heart has four chambers. These are right atrium, right ventricle, and left ventricle. And four valves. These are two atrioventricular valve, tricuspid and mitral, and two semilunar valves. These are pulmonic and aortic valve. Blood flows through four chambers of the heart, and the circulation of blood is divided into two types. These are pulmonary circulation and systemic circulation. Blood enters the right atrium and passes through the right ventricle. The right ventricle pumps the blood to the lungs where it becomes oxygenated. This oxygenated blood is then brought back to the heart by the pulmonary veins which enter the left atrium. This part of the circulation is known as pulmonary circulation. And then from the left atrium, blood enters or flows into the left ventricle. The left ventricle then pumps the blood to the aorta, which will distribute the oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. This part of circulation is known as systemic circulation. The pumping action of the heart is divided into two parts. These are systole and diastole. Systole occurs when the heart contracts to pump blood out, and diastole occurs when the heart relaxes after contraction. Both of these make the cardiac cycle. So the assessment of cardiovascular system begins with taking history or relevant subjective data regarding chest pain, dyspnea, cough, fatigue, cyanosis or pallor, history of edema, past cardiac history, family cardiac history, personal habits, medication history, and smoking history. So general guidelines or preparation for assessment involves a room that is warm and quiet, and examining table should be positioned so that you can stand on the patient's right side. Patient should wear a gown to ensure privacy, a watch with seconds, stethoscope with diaphragm and bell, BP apparatus, two scales, and a light source, and that is a torch. Examination sequence of cardiovascular system consists of examination of pulses, measurement of blood pressure, examination of neck vessels, examination of precordium by inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. Assessment of the peripheral vascular system. Techniques used to assess the peripheral vascular system are inspection and palpation. Arms are inspected for pain, skin changes, and presence of any swelling, and palpated for checking radial, ulnar, and brachial pulses, epitrochlear lymph nodes, and also perform the Allen test. Legs are inspected for pain, skin changes, swelling. If calf pain is present, then check the Homan's sign. Palpation of the femoral, popliteal, dorsalis pedis, and posterior tibialis pulses. If peritibial edema is present, then press over the tibia and medial malleolus for 5 seconds to rule out pitting edema. Allen test. This test is done to assess for patency of ulnar and radial arteries. To perform this test, instruct the patient to raise his or her hand and make a fist for about 30 seconds. Using the fingers, apply pressure over the ulnar and radial arteries so as to occlude both the arteries. Then ask the patient to open the hand in elevated position. It should appear blanched. Pallor can be observed at the fingernails, and ulnar pressure is released, and the color should return in less than 7 seconds. If color returns as described above, the Allen test is considered to be positive. If the color fails to return, the test is considered negative and the ulnar artery supply to the hand is not sufficient. The radial artery therefore cannot be safely pricked or cannulated. Homan's sign. It is named after the American physician John Humans. A positive sign is present when there is pain in the calf muscle on forceful and abrupt dorsiflexion of the patient's foot at the ankle while the knee is extended. Burger test. With the patient's spine, raise his legs to about 45 degrees at the hip and hold for 2 to 3 minutes. The blood will drain from the legs and will turn pale. After 2 to 3 minutes, ask the patient to sit up and lower the leg by hanging it off side of the bed or table and then note the time it takes for color to return. Normally it takes less than 1 minute for the color to return. If it takes longer, the test is positive for arterial compromise to the lower extremities. Trendelenburg test. The purpose for this test is performed to determine the competency of the valve between the superficial and deep veins of the legs in the patient with varicose veins. To perform this test patient being in supine position, his leg flexed at hip and raised above the heart level until the veins become empty. A tourniquet is then applied around the upper thigh to compress the superficial veins. The patient is then asked to stand on his feet in order to bring the leg below the heart level. Normally, the superficial saphenous vein will fill from below within 3 to 5 seconds as blood from the capillary bed reaches the vein. If the superficial veins fill more rapidly with the tourniquet in place, there is a valvular incompetencies below the level of the tourniquet in the deep veins. And superficial veins of the legs normally empty into deep veins. Retrograde filling occurs due to valvular incompetency, which leading to varicose veins. Examination of pulses. Commonly felt pulses are carotid, brachial, radial, femoral, popliteal, posterior tibial, and dorsalis pedis. Radial pulses are checked by pressing the radial artery against the head of the radius bone. To check a brachial pulse, flex the patient's arm and feel for the tendon of the bicep. Press on its medial side. To assess carotid pulse, place the thumb or fingers of your opposite hand along the interior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscles at the level of laryngeal cartilage and then press backward. To assess femoral pulse, press with the thumb or finger along the inguinal ligament. Popliteal pulse is checked by flexing the knee at the angle of 120 degree and push fingers of both hands into the popliteal fossa. It is normally difficult to palpate. Dorsalis pedis, palpate in the proximal part of the first intermetatarsal space, and to assess posterior tibialis, palpate behind the medial malleolus. What to look for while examining the pulses? We should assess rate and assess for tachycardia, bradycardia, relative bradycardia, and make sure to count for full 1 minute. On the second, assess for rhythm. Rhythm normally interval between the beats is constant and rhythm is regular. If it is disturbed or becomes irregular. Sinus arrhythmia. Pulse rate is faster during the inspiration and slower during the expiration, which is a normal phenomena. This may not be present in the patient with heart failure. And occasional irregularity. Premature beats occurs earlier than expected, which is weak and is followed by a longer pause. This is also a normal phenomena. Regularly irregular. Premature beats occurs at a fixed interval, for example after one normal beat. Bigeminy. After two normal beats, it is termed as trigeminy. Irregularly irregular. Beats occur irregularly and there is no pattern. Atrial fibrillation is the most common cause of such arrhythmias. Pulse deficit. The difference between the pulse rate and the heart rate is called pulse deficit. For example, in atrial fibrillation, the left ventricular contractions are weak and are not conducted to the arteries. Thus, the pulse rate is slower than the heart rate counted by auscultation. Volume of the pulse. This is the amplitude of the pulse wave and is determined by the amount of displacement of the palpating finger. Pulse volume could be normally learned by experience and it is high, for example, in fever, or low volume occurs in heart failure and hypovolemic shock. Compare the volume of the pulses of both sides simultaneously except for carotid arteries. Radiofemoral delay. Femoral pulse is weak and is delayed as compared to radial pulse, as in the coarctation of aorta. Character of the pulse. In some disease, the pulse wave have a specific waveform and or character which can be detected by palpating major pulses close to the heart. Pulsus plateau, slow rising pulse. It rises slowly and stays longer with the palpating finger and it occurs in aortic stenosis. Water hammer pulse or collapsing pulse. It is a high volume pulse with normal upstroke but rapid downstrokes. This is normally seen in aortic regurgitation and ventricular septal defects. Pulses bisphrenes. Two systolic peaks are palpable in one pulse. This is normally seen in aortic stenosis and aortic regurgitation. Pulsus paradoxus. This is an exaggeration of a normal phenomena in which pulse either becomes weak or impalpable during inspiration. This is normally seen in cardiac tamponade or constrictive pericarditis. Pulsus alternans. A strong beat is followed by a weak beat, but the interval between beats is constant and rhythm is regular. This is normally found in supraventricular tachycardia and ventricular failure. Pulsus bigeminus. Similar to pulsus alternans, but interval between the beats is variable. This is a digoxin toxicity is the most common cause. This is the pulse amplitude scale. 0 is equal to absent and 1 plus is equal to weak, diminished or easy to obliterate pulse, and 2 plus is equal to normal, obliterated with normal pressure, and 3 plus is equal to bounding, unable to obliterate or require firm pressure. Measurement of blood pressure. Patient should be resting and relaxed, sitting or lying on bed. BP cuff should be wide enough to cover about 2/3 of the arm length and remove all the clothing from the upper arm. Apply the cuff closely to the upper arm so that its lower border is not less than 2.5 cm above the cubital fossa and tubing is on the medial side. Now apply palpatory versus auscultatory method. Measurement. Normal values of blood pressure in adults are less than 135 over 85 is normal, and 130 over 85 to 139 over 89 is high normal, and 140 by 90 or above is hypertensive. Pulse pressure. It is the difference between the systolic and diastolic pressure. Normal range is 30 to 60 millimeter of mercury. Silent gap. In some hypertensive patients, the Korsakoff sound disappears for some times between systolic and diastolic pressure. This is called as a silent gap. The neck vessels. These are the carotid artery, the jugular venous pulse and pressures. Jugular veins has two components. These are internal jugular vein and external jugular vein. Carotid artery. Palpate low in the neck to avoid carotid sinus. Palpate only one side at a time to avoid compromising blood flows to the head. Auscultate using the bell of the stethoscope. Then assessment of jugular vein. Purpose to measure the central venous pressure. To perform this, position the patient at 45-degree angle at hip. Turn head slightly away. Use a strong light tangentially. Observe the external jugular vein over the sternocleidomastoid muscles. Locate the internal jugular veins pulsation. Determine the highest point of the pulsation. Locate the angle of Loeys or sternal angle. Make a T-square with two scales. Read the level of the intersection of these two scales, and then the normal jugular venous pressure is 3 cm or less above the sternal angle at 45 degrees. Causes of raised jugular venous pressure is right ventricular failure, constrictive pericarditis and pericardial effusion, tricuspid valve disease. If the neck veins are distended but not pulsatile, cause is obstruction of the superior vena cava. Kussmaul signs. In constrictive pericarditis, the jugular venous pressure instead of falling rises during inspiration. The downward movement of the diaphragm compresses the congested liver, increasing venous return, but right atrium cannot expand due to rigid pericardium, and thus jugular venous pressure rises. Hepatojugular reflux. This is measured if the CVP is elevated or CHF is suspected. Keep the patient in the supine position. Instruct him to breathe quietly with mouth open. With your right hand on the patient's right upper quadrant just below the rib cage, exert firm, consistent pressure for 30 seconds. Watch the level of the jugular venous pressure. Normally the jugular pulsation rises but recedes back. Abnormally the pressure elevates and then stays. The precordium. Precordium is the part of the chest that overlies the heart. To inspect this, look for any chest deformity, bulging of pericardium, scars, particularly along the sternum or intercostal spaces, which indicate the previous cardiac surgery, pulsations of the apex beat, pulsation along the parasternal border due to right ventricular hypertrophy, and pulsation in the left second intercostal space due to dilatation of pulmonary artery. Pulsation in the right second intercostal space due to aneurysm of aorta, and pulsations in the suprasternal notch are due to aortic regurgitation. Palpation. Use the flat of the palm starting from the lower part of the left side of the chest, then along the left parasternal border, and finally upper part of the right side of the chest. By palpation, note the following: apex beat, left parasternal heave, palpable heart sound, any thrill which is palpable murmur, and palpable pericardial rub. The apex beat. It is defined as the outermost and lowermost part of the precordium where a definite cardiac impulse is felt. Location of the apex beat. Normally it is located in the fifth intercostal space, 1 cm medial to the mid-clavicular line. In children less than 7 years of age, the apex beat is located in the 4th intercostal space, lateral to the mid-clavicular line. Shift of apex beat occurs if the left ventricle is enlarged. Causes of impalpable apex beat can be thick chest wall, emphysema, pericardial effusion, and dextrocardia, in which heart is in the right chest and therefore apex beat will be palpable on the right side. Character of the apex beat. Normally apex beat is neither forceful, tapping in force, or nor does it lift the palpating finger. This means heave. Tapping apex beat. It is the forceful but palpating finger is not displaced, which feels like a hard knock on the other side of the closed door. Cause is palpable loud S1 sound, for example in mitral stenosis. Heaving apex beat. Palpating finger is lifted. Causes are aortic stenosis, hypertension, and aortic regurgitation. Left parasternal heaves. Place your hand vertically along the left parasternal border. If it moves with each cardiac contraction, left parasternal heave is present. Cause is right ventricular enlargement. Palpable heart sounds. S1 is palpable at the apex in mitral stenosis and is known as tapping apex beat. Pulmonary component of S2 is palpable at pulmonary area in the pulmonary hypertension. Aortic component of S2 may be palpable in the aortic area in systemic hypertension. Thrill. A loud murmur becomes palpable and is known as thrill. It can resemble the purring of a cat. Thrills which are timed with carotid pulsations are known as systolic, and those which alternate with carotid pulsations are known as diastolic thrills. Thrills are best appreciated when the patient leans forward, holding his breath in expiration. Causes of the thrills could be mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, aortic stenosis, aortic regurgitation, pulmonary stenosis, and ventricular septal defect. Palpable pericardial friction rub. Pericardial friction rub becomes palpable in acute pericarditis and is best felt at the left sternal border near xiphoid area and over tricuspid area. It is best appreciated in sitting and leaning forward position. Percussion. Percuss for the right border laterally to the medially in 2nd to 5th intercostal space starting from the midclavicular line. On the right side, normal cardiac dullness is lateral to the right lateral edge of the sternum in the 4th intercostal space. For the left border, percuss in the 3rd to 5th intercostal space laterally to medially starting in the axilla. On the left side, normal cardiac dullness is medial to midclavicular line in the 4th intercostal space. This is all about today's lecture. Thank you.